What's up, guys? I want to share a quick little story. So, I was training a kid, and it's a lot of kids I get that are like this. But I was training a kid, and the whole workout is just a fight. Like I'm trying to convince him to work harder, trying to convince him to get lower, faster, consistency, follow like everything. Everything's a fight, and I don't want them to have a negative outlook on basketball. So I know it's easy, especially with younger kids. You know, if it's their first experiences with a trainer or a coach, and it's like all negative stuff, then that might just be their impression of the game. When the game's not all negative, a lot of it is positive, a lot of it's fun and all that. But a guy yelling at you because you're doing all this stuff wrong for an hour straight is for sure a negative experience. Like afterwards, I always feel bad. Like, man, am I being too hard on him? Uh, I feel bad afterwards. I don't want to just yell at a kid for an hour. I don't want to be mean to a kid for an hour. And I don't think I'm being mean. And that's so my coaching style. I would rather know that what I'm doing is bad. It's like if I'm the kid or I'm the player. Like I used to appreciate the coaches that told me what I was doing wasn't good enough. Now in the moment, maybe I didn't particularly like it, but in hindsight, thinking back, because it make you do something. Either you're a player and it may take the news bad initially, but it's like, well, I'm gonna fix it. Like you tell me, my crossover's not low enough, they're gonna steal it. Whatever, coach, you don't know. But then in my head, I wouldn't say that, but in my head maybe. But then it was like I will reevaluate. Like, is the crossover low enough, or maybe it's man you're not consistent enough from three or whatever it is. Um, that's what a player would do. Now, a baby would cry. A baby would be sad. A baby would be upset and then not do anything about it. But the people that are probably going to continue to move on would probably look at it. Maybe some great people, kids, adults, whatever, would look at it like thanks and then move on. And then some people that aren't as mature probably would take it negatively and hopefully understand that that's helpful. But that's beyond the point. So my whole process is I would hate to steer a parent, a family, a kid wrong by acting like what they're doing is good enough and it's not. Because I feel like that's stealing. That's what when they say you got these bad trainers out here that are just doing whatever with the kids. I feel like those are the trainers that, oh yeah, he's good, he'll be fine, and oh he's got plenty of time. And in reality, he don't have plenty of time. Maybe he does have time, but there's plenty of time that there's work that needs to be done in that time. And if he's not doing the work yet, then he's probably behind, if that makes sense. So maybe if a kid's 10 years old, yeah, sure, he does have plenty of time before he needs to try to be a starter on the high school team or try to get the college scholarship or whatever he's trying to achieve. But he don't have plenty of time to not be moving forward. And so, and some kids are just kind of just flatline because of the situation I'm talking about right now. So the kid, I'm looking at what he's doing. Like I said, everything's a fight. I got to really tell him 4 or 5 times. We don't get through that much stuff. And I'm big on efficiency. Like I want to, in an hour, if the parent pays for an hour of training, I want them to feel like they got an hour and a half worth of training. I don't want them to pay for an hour and they feel like they got 20 minutes worth of training because it's just, not cost effective, number one. And then number two, it's slow. It's a slow process for the kid to get better. And so, but just some kids aren't ready for that. And so I determined with this particular kid that the first step for him is just to not want to be lazy. Because sometimes the really smart kids, they figure out all the shortcuts. They figure out, well, if I do this, even though it's a shortcut, I save energy. If I do this, then my back doesn't hurt. If I do this, then my legs don't hurt. If I do this, so they figure out all the shortcuts because they're brilliant kids that, like I said, are really smart. But I'm not saying you have to be stupid to play basketball or any sport or anything like that, but you also have to not be too smart for your own good where you're trying to figure out which ways you can shortcut the process, because the process is the process. It's no way to shortcut it. The shortest path on this process is to just do the hard work without looking for the shortcuts and then eventually needing to do the hard work. So it's just, okay, that's the work, bam, do the hard work. And it takes this level of maturity. And so I was talking to the dad afterwards and I was telling him, as an example, like they say, don't touch fire. Like as a kid, don't touch fire, don't touch fire. Everybody's touched fire before because you wanted to know for yourself, so you needed to learn. Everybody's hard-headed because they have to learn for themselves. But when you touch fire, you're like, oh, they were right. Keep my hand away from fire. And so now you know. But it had to be prefaced with, don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it. And then you learn the lesson because you had to pay for that hot hands you had. And I think most kids, they, even though you try to warn them and it's frustrating, I told you, I don't want you to make these mistakes, whatever, they have to make the mistake. They got to have the loss. They got to take the loss. And as trainers and coaches, the goal is to be ready to, don't do this, don't do that, do it like this, do it like that. And then when they fail, because they did it their way, make sure that they tie back in the fact that this is what we were talking about. We said don't jump in the air to pass because you would turn it over. It worked once and then it didn't work. And so, and this is why it didn't work. Jump stop, whatever, as an example. And so, back to the story. So the kid is lazy, period. He's lazy. And so, maybe 4 sessions in, I'm trying to figure out different ways to force him to do more than what he's comfortable doing. Like, you know, we gotta do this many reps in this time frame. So when you try to put a timer on him, now each rep is a bad rep because he's just rushing. So that doesn't work. You have all these different applications. Like I use the home court app, which I think is amazing, but I use the home court app for some of the kids to use because it gives feedback, great drills, it's fun for the kid, whatever. But it shouldn't take that. It shouldn't take, I mean, I guess it should take because it should be fun, but it shouldn't. You shouldn't have to entertain them to get them better. They should want to get better. And some people do and some people don't. But we do all these different things to not really deal with the real issue. And the real issue is he wants to be lazy. Like, he's never chosen to not be lazy. He's like, I'm lazy and I'm going to play basketball. But unfortunately, there's no lazy way to be good at basketball. There's no, like, you can play basketball and you can get better at basketball, but you can't be good at basketball because, you know, in the next city or the next door, there's somebody else that's not lazy, that's working hard, that's just as big or strong or bigger or whatever, and they're gonna get the minutes. So when you get to games and you're lazy, everybody wants to play. I don't think there's anybody that just don't want to play. So everybody wants to play. I don't think there's any guys that are just like, I'm lazy and I don't really care if I get any minutes when I go to the game. Like, everybody wants to get in, everybody wants to try to produce, but they want to know, how do I produce with giving this much effort? What's the biggest return? And that's just natural. Like everybody for their job, they want to figure out, well, if I can work, your pay rate is valuable. Like, if I can make $50 an hour, oh, that's a solid job. I like that. $100 an hour, that's a great job. Nobody wants $1 per hour because the rate of exchange is just bad. And so, same thing with kids. They don't want to do this much work to get this result. And that's natural. But in reality, you're going to do this much work and you'll get this much result if you're lucky. And that's how sports works. And it's just going to keep going it's going to keep going like that. And so you got to be willing to figure out if you're just gonna be lazy. If that's the choice, I'm gonna be a lazy person. Then you gotta find something else. Maybe a different sport, maybe a sport that isn't as physically demanding. But if the first step in this process is, I gotta learn how to not be lazy. A mental approach to, I don't want to be the lazy guy no more. Then it makes everything else work better. You'll run better, you'll shoot better, you'll dribble better, like you'll train better, because your number one priority isn't saving this energy. It'll be to just get better, because that's what people do. They show up to get better, but then they get tired, and then getting better is no longer the priority. It's just saving energy or not overexerting themselves, which I've yet to see a kid pass out because he's overexerted himself. I've seen kids get subbed out or just stop playing basketball altogether because they didn't get good enough because they didn't overexert themselves. So I wouldn't worry about the overexertion. I'm not saying that it's not a thing. Some people probably do it all the time. I just don't ever see it. So yeah, I just wanted to share that story. So again, lazy and basketball do not mix. There's just no way that the two can go together. You cannot be lazy and have a gratifying, fulfilling basketball career. What will happen is people will see the potential in you because you could potentially, everybody's got some potential. Just, having years ahead of you to get better is potential. And so everybody's got some potential, and it'll be a strain on whoever's relationship, either the trainer and the player, because I see you being lazy. I want to get the most out of you in the hour, and you trying to figure out how to do the least in the hour. Figure out something else. You're not going to be good at it. And certainly don't think that you should show up to games thinking you're going to start or you're going to play. Like, you're going to get whatever's left over, if anything. Like, the starter minutes are few and far between for guys who are lazy. I don't know a whole lot of lazy players that get to just start and play, come in and out of the game as they please. Like, those guys usually sit on the bench and clap and they're frustrated. So again, if you're a lazy person, this is not going to work out for you. You should probably move on and do something else. If you're open to just kind of like an alcoholic or something, like taking the steps to stop drinking or taking the steps to stop whatever you're doing that is not right, and you're open to taking the steps to stop being lazy, then there's potential, and I think you can do whatever. You can do anything you want to do. But if you're thinking you're going to hang on to laziness and be this high-level basketball player, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. With the exception, everything's relative, but the exception of if you're going to be 7'5", 290 pounds with a nice jumper, then yeah, you could afford to not work as hard as the 5'5" guy. And that makes perfect sense. But you still ain't going to be lazy. You're going to have to do some amount of work in order to be good at anything. And that's just how it goes. So that's it.